Good afternoon, Open Arm Nation. I hope all is well with you. It is my great honor, my great privilege to be able to spend just a few moments with you this afternoon, to be able just to share a thought that God placed on my heart and in my spirit, and I wanted to be able to share it with you, and I hope that it blesses you in the same fashion and in the same way that it blessed me. You know, I was riding home from work earlier this week, and in my mind I was complaining about some of the things that had taken place at work, things that were out of my control, if you will, but yet I was still complaining, and it really bothered me that I was complaining about these things. And so I began to ask God, is it wrong to complain? Am I out of order to complain? And what God spoke to me were these four things, and I want to be able to share with you, because I pray that it helps you the way that it helped me. The first thing that He dropped in my spirit was, we have to realize that complaining can be dangerous. Complaining can be dangerous. Complaining is another device that the enemy uses to be able to distract us from fulfilling what it is that God would have us to do, and what God is trying to do in our lives. So if He can't distract us, whether it be through the temptation of the flesh, or if He can't distract us with, our spouse, if He can't distract us with our children, the enemy will always try to find an avenue to be able to distract us from being able to totally focus on what it is God has in store for our life. Not only our life, even for just that moment. We have to realize that when we complain, that we take our focus off of God, that we take our focus off our purpose, that we take our focus off the path that God has carved out for us, and we redirect our attention on some things and something that probably don't even matter, that probably don't even really amount to much of anything, but yet we spend time and energy and effort to complain about those things. And I want you to know today that complaining can be dangerous. Do not put your time, your effort, your energy in complaining about things, especially things that you don't have control of. And even if you find yourself in a situation where you may be going through some stuff that you may have put yourself in, don't complain about it. Realize that God is still God, and that He's still awesome and still big enough to even take us out of our own mess. The second thing, saints, the second thing that He shared with me is that we always have to remember that God knows exactly what He's doing. Have you ever been going through a season in your life, or a trial or a tribulation, or find yourself in a situation and you say, Lord, woe is me? Why me? Why am I going through this? And we complain about it. We complain about the struggle, or we complain about the hardship, or we complain about the trial and the tribulation. But what we have to realize, number one, is God doesn't take us through anything that He has not already designed, if you will, for our betterment. A lot of the things that we go through, saints of God, is for our growth. A lot of the things that we go through, saints of God, is for our spiritual maturity. There will be some experiences in our life. There will be some things that God will allow to take place and to happen in our lives, because He is trying to grow us and take us to the next level. So so we don't want to get caught up in complaining about it, because if we complain about it, that's like saying, well, God, I don't want to grow. I don't want to go to the next level. Because the reality of it is, if we're going to the next level of God, if we're going to grow in God, whether it be deeper in Him, whether it be wider in Him or higher in Him, if we're going to grow, that means that sometimes we're going to have to go through some stuff that may be uncomfortable to go through. But God knows exactly what he is doing, and I promise you that he will not take you through anything that you cannot bear, whether it be on your job, like my past experience this week, in the frustration that I was feeling and the aggravation that I was feeling, and found myself complaining about it. I could have took that energy and just really begin to hone in and focus on God. But instead, I took that hour of time or hour and a half time, however long it was, that I was kind of in my oh, woe is me moment and complain about it instead of focusing on what it is that God is trying to do in my life. And even if I can't figure it out, I have to know and understand that God is in control and that he holds my best interest at heart. The third thing, saints, that God poured into my heart is that we have to make sure that we put away past complaints. We can't hold on to them. We can't drag them out. We can't stretch them out, because if we do, those past complaints can become bitterness in our life. Whatever that situation was, whatever aggravated you, whatever you're complaining about, if we allow ourselves, if you will, to settle in it, and we allow it to take up residence in our heart and in our life, then we risk the chance that it becomes bitterness. And if it becomes bitterness, that's a whole nother can of worms that we've opened up. You do not want to have to deal with trying to eliminate, if you will, the bitterness or the bitter experiences that we may be holding on to. Because that's, again, another device, another weapon, another avenue that the enemy tries to get at God's people. Do not allow the enemy to suck you in and hold you in a season that is not designed for you, because that's what happens. When we become bitter about things, we become unforgiving. When we become bitter about certain things, then we find ourselves holding a grudge. When we become bitter, it changes our mind frame and our outlook on things. And we may come across somebody that has nothing to do for the reason that we are bitter, but because they remind us of a person or a situation, or they sound like or a person or a situation, it triggers something on the inside of us, in our bitterness pool, if you will, and we unleash, I'm gonna say it, some ungodly attitude upon that person that probably wasn't deserving in the first place, because we're bitter. Bitter is like carrying a suitcase around that you never take time to unpack. You know it's there. You know that sometimes it gets heavy, but yet we don't unpack it. We just carry it around. Do not allow the enemy to put any extra weight or packages in the luggage that we're already carrying. Matter of fact, drop all the luggage that we're carrying and lay it at Christ's feet and say, this is not my weight, but it's your weight, Lord. Help me, God, to lay it down. Help me to release the bitterness in my heart. Help me to stop complaining, God. I simply want to focus on you and grow deeper in you and know you more and read your word more. That's what God requires. Last but not least, we have to remember to give thanks for all things. There it is. Instead of complaining, give thanks. Oh, it's easier said than done, because sometimes it's so much easier just to complain about something. Sometimes it feels better to complain about something. So it's something that rises up in our flesh. Something about complaining about life situations, or complaining about a circumstance or a trial or a tribulation. There's something that feels good. It's something that that you could almost grasp, that just says, yes, if I could just complain and get my feelings out, if I could just complain and get my thoughts out, if I could just complain and let go of my emotions. But the reality of it is, oftentimes when we do so, we don't always find ourselves in the greatest, if you will, character of God. We want to walk in God's presence at all times. That ought to be our goal. We want to do his will at all times. That ought to be our goal. We want to go about life's everyday situations in the way that God would have us go about it. That is our goal. That is what we should be striving for. So last but not least, again I say, give thanks for all things. Those are not my words. That's Bible. Look it up. That's biblical. Look it up. That's scripture. Look it up. That's word. Look it up. Give thanks for all things. No matter what we're going through in life, no matter how bad it may be, that it may seem or feel, give thanks for all things, because what that shows God is that it shows him a level of spiritual maturity, that no matter what I'm going through, Lord, no matter what I have to endure, Lord, I will give thanks. Job was probably the one of the story that pops into my mind with one of the greatest examples of the things that he had to endure. But when it was all said and done, at the end, he still was able to give thanks. That's our goal, saints of God. That's my thought for this afternoon. I pray that you take those 4 things. Number 1, remember to realize that complaining is dangerous. Number 2, know that God is always in control and he knows what he's doing. Number 3, do not allow your complaints, do not hold on to it, if you will, and allow it to turn into bitterness. And last but not least, give thanks for all things. Saints of God, God is worthy of all the praise we have to offer, because he loves us more than we're able to love ourselves. I pray that this thought that I share with you this afternoon may bless someone's life. You may be going through a hard time right now. You may have found yourself complaining earlier today. I pray that you take these little 4 nuggets, if you will, apply them and make them applicable into your life. And I promise you, if you do so, God will honor it, because we're chasing after his own heart. And we're trying to be more like him day in and day out. God bless you. Until I see you next time, you all be blessed.